It was 25 years ago this week that a young wife and mother named Vicki Hindman made the news not by choice, but by chance. Vicki's husband, Orrin, was a South Dakota Highway Patrol trooper who arrested a woman suspected of driving drunk. He was taking her and her male passenger to jail when he was attacked from behind. To this day, Orrin is one of only 5 state troopers in South Dakota history to die in the line of duty. Tonight, in the first part of our special report, Where Are They Now?, we meet again with Orrin's widow, Vicki Hindman.
He really cared for people, and that was why he went into law enforcement, because he thought that was one way that he could help people.
Vicki Hindman recalls the time her husband, South Dakota Highway Patrol Trooper Orrin Hindman, stopped a woman with a baby but no car seat. He came home and asked Vicki if he could give their extra car seat to the new mom. Vicki says that was just the kind of person he was. But Orrin was more than just a nice guy. Vicki describes him as a bright man, a funny man who is athletic, poetic, and musically inclined.
I don't think there was anything that he couldn't do.
The two had been married 4.5 years, practically newlyweds, she says, and were raising a 2-year-old daughter when Orrin went to work on May 2nd, 1985. That night near Spearfish, Orrin stopped a woman for drunk driving. He arrested her and was planning to take her to the county jail in Deadwood. Vicki says the woman's passenger, Wade Akins, appeared incapable of driving. So, although Akins was not under arrest, Orrin put him in the back seat of the patrol car to take him to Deadwood, too.
They had just started, they were on the interstate, they just started towards Deadwood, and the gentleman in the back seat, I guess, had decided he was not going to go to jail. He thought he was going to jail, and he had a knife on him, and he pulled the knife out, and he stabbed Orrin in the throat.
Orrin stopped the car and tried to call for help while the couple fled on foot. He then drove himself to the Spearfish Hospital, but died before surgeons could get there. Orrin Hindman was just 30 years old.
Standing before Judge Warren Johnson, Wade Akins said very quietly, "I'm sorry, I'm sure he was a good man."
Wade Akins was about to go on trial for first-degree murder when he decided to plead guilty to second-degree murder instead. The state's attorney consulted with Vicki, who says they made the plea deal because even if Akins were found guilty, he could come back later and appeal. By pleading, she said, he couldn't do that, and his punishment would be the same: life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Akins, meanwhile, was taken to the state prison. Prosecutor Roger Tellinghusen says of Akins, he has been removed from our society forever.
And that's where Wade Akins remains today. Vicki says she's not angry with him anymore. She says she wasn't even really angry with him then. What she felt was pity.
He obviously didn't have a good life, and I know that's not the way Orrin would want us to be, to hold a grudge against him or to be angry. I will have to say it took a long time before I could say I forgave what he did.
Years later, Vicki tells others who've lost someone tragically that there's no time frame for grief. It took her 5 years to say she was living, not just existing. She says get help from whomever or whatever you're comfortable with: faith, friends, family, or a professional. By getting better and moving on, she says, you can be a living tribute to your loved one. Even after 25 years, though, Vicki still thinks of Orrin often.
Almost every day. I mean, there's a lot of things that that will remind me of him. Something my daughter will do, little mannerisms. When I hear something in the news about Highway Patrol, so that always brings back memories. I mean, he loved the Highway Patrol, and that was foremost in his life until his daughter was born.
His daughter, Erin, is now 28 years old. She and Vicki both have homes in Sturgis, and Vicki works as a patient services assistant at Fort Meade. Vicki never remarried, said she looked for a time, but nobody could replace her husband. She says Orrin always said if something happened to him, she and Erin would be taken care of, and that was true.
He provided for us in a way that he didn't even realize, and that was with our faith. It was after he passed away that we started studying the Bible, and that has given us a real hope for the future because we believe in the resurrection.
As Jehovah's Witnesses, who often share their beliefs with others, Vicki says the two have found happiness and joy and a way to live as Orrin did.
He wanted to help people. So we feel like we're kind of carrying that on in our own way.
Vicki says the Highway Patrol is still like family to her, and she takes care of them like family too. Every year during the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, Vicki and a friend make one homemade meal every day for troopers who come from far and wide to work at the week-long event. Tomorrow night we go back to the early 90s to a time when a battle broke out over dinosaur bones here in western South Dakota. That's in part 2 of Where Are They Now? Last night, we began our look back at newsmakers in the Black Hills with the introduction of our series, Where Are They Now? Tonight, we go back about 65 million years. Okay, not exactly. We go back 20 years to the summer of 1990 when a now famous Tyrannosaurus Rex named Sue was found near Faith. The man who led the team that excavated her and made headlines across the country for the events that followed is the subject of tonight's Where Are They Now?
A Triceratops. You can see it's covered with this pink stuff, which is actually silicone. And silicone is wonderful because it's very flexible. And
Peter Larson's obsession with digging up dinosaur bones started early, at the age of 4, growing up on a ranch near Mission.
And we had a local museum, the Zeitner Geological Museum, in Mission, South Dakota. And so I took the things that I'd find, and June Zeitner would identify them for me and became my mentor and loaned me books and really got me interested in paleontology.
His big finds back then included a few teeth and part of an American elephant. Pretty exciting stuff for a young boy. But the find of his life came years later, in August of 1990. His team from the Black Hills Institute of Geological Research was working at a quarry near Faith when team member Susan Hendrickson showed up with pieces of a Tyrannosaurus Rex bone that she'd found at a nearby ranch. She said there was more, lots more.
We ran about 2 miles to the site, and here were the ground was just littered with fragments of bone, and up about 7 feet up the side of the cliff, here were cross sections of bones coming out. And as I crawled up to the edge of it, I saw 3 articulated vertebrae, and I knew at that moment that this was probably the best thing we're ever going to find.
Until 1992, Larson says the Institute got a great deal of positive attention for finding Sue, the largest, most complete T-Rex found to date. Then in the spring of '92, a news report came out saying the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe was claiming ownership of the bones. And in May of that year, chaos broke out outside of the Institute in Hill City.
I lived in a little trailer house back behind here, and I was taking a shower, and one of the gals who works here banged on the door and said, "You better get out here. This place is surrounded with FBI agents."
Federal officials locked down the building, handed over a subpoena, and seized Sue.
The purpose of our action this morning is to preserve the scientific knowledge and integrity of these fossils.
Don't be cruel, stay Sue! Don't be cruel, stay Sue!
For the next 3 days, Larson's crew prepared Sue for transport. The National Guard took her to Rapid City, where she was stored at the South Dakota School of Mines. At one point, 4 parties all claimed to be her rightful owner: the Institute, the landowner, the tribe, and the U.S. government.
But when they claimed this, then we decided to sue the U.S. government. Don't try this at home. It's not a good idea.
When the Institute sued the government started investigating the Institute. The legal battles that followed lasted several years. In the civil case, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals ultimately ruled that Sue belonged to landowner Morris Williams. In a separate criminal case, Larson was found guilty of 2 felonies unrelated to Sue for not properly filling out customs forms on international business trips. For that, he served 2 years in prison.
I'm a convicted felon. It's kind of a badge of courage for me because, you know, we stood up and here we are. We're still here. We succeeded.
Larson is still a bit disappointed, though, that Sue is not at the museum in Hill City. Sue sold at auction for close to $8 million and went on display 10 years ago this month at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago.
The main thing is that she's seen, that people can go up and stand like this in front of her, just like I do every time I see her. And they can really understand the power of these ancient bones and the stories that they can tell.
Since Sue, the Institute has collected 7 other T-Rexes, including Stan, which is displayed in Hill City. And Larson's team is currently working with a museum in Texas.
they'll have our latest T-Rex that we collected and a really wonderful Triceratops down there.
Larson himself recently returned from working on another dinosaur in South America. He says he's not at liberty to talk about that one yet, but it's pretty exciting. At the same time, he's pursuing his doctorate through the University of Manchester in England.
Which has been a goal that I've had almost forever and was somewhat thwarted earlier in my career, and so now I'm very happy to be able to finish this up.
Larson says he never imagined he'd make headlines like he did. Now he's just glad to be part of something big, something that grabs people's attention. He says if you can get a kid asking questions about dinosaurs, they'll start digging for answers about all sorts of other things.
Whenever you can get somebody to think about something that they normally would not have thought about, it's a pretty special feeling to get to watch those questions show up.
Well, I had to ask Mr. Larson what I have to do to get a dinosaur named after me. He says I have to find one, then tell him about it so his team can dig it up and name it after me. We wrap up our special tomorrow night when we check in with a young man who won viewers' votes a few years ago in our first ever Rising Star of the West scholarship competition. We'll tell you where Shad Chrisman is now, coming up tomorrow night. The Black Hills region is full of smart, talented teenagers with unique perspectives and plenty of things to say. 3 years ago, Shad Chrisman fit that bill just fine. He entered our first Rising Star of the West scholarship competition here on Black Hills Fox and stole the show, sharing his thoughts on topics like the benefits of a 4-day school week and the importance of music education. In the conclusion of our special report, Where Are They Now?, we catch up with Shad Chrisman.
But in my experience, I've found an equally satisfying and safe alternative stress reliever. When dealing with everyday problems, just rock out.
You may remember him as the energetic, outgoing small-town teen who won your votes and a $2,500 scholarship in KEVN's very first Rising Star of the West scholarship competition. That was back in 2007, back when Shad Chrisman was just a junior at Lemon High School.
Getting to be on TV, that was huge, and I had a lot of fun, and I know my community liked to watch it as well. They were pretty excited, just as excited as I was. So.
They were so excited, in fact, that Shad was elevated to celebrity status.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
With his own fan club, Bodyguard.
He's gonna win. He better win.
Why is that?
Otherwise, I'll have to beat somebody else.
And his own stylish dance moves. Mr. Chrisman, you could say, is Mr. Lemon.
That's the beauty of being and living in a small town, is that everyone's a celebrity. And there's a lot of rising stars all over South Dakota.
Shad says being part of the Rising Star contest helped him improve his writing skills, his speaking ability, and upped his confidence level.
It broke the ice for me meeting a lot of people. I was a South Dakota State FFA officer my freshman year in college. And I traveled around the state, and I would see people all over West River, and they would say, you're that Rising Star kid from Lemon. Like, yeah, hi, I'm Shad, you know.
Being an officer for Future Farmers of America made for an interesting freshman year full of travel and unique experiences.
Intensive job, something I was very passionate about, got to meet a lot of young kids and a lot of young people, and push the values of agriculture and leadership.
And push his own personal boundaries. Shad went skydiving last April to make a very bold statement in his retiring address. He said he wanted to show his fellow FFA members that they need to release themselves from their fears in order to accomplish their aspirations. These days, Shad continues to pursue his own aspirations and is loving college life at the same time. He's a sophomore now, studying speech communications and political science at South Dakota State University in Brookings. He's a community assistant in Hanson Hall and very involved on campus.
I'm a member of Golden Key, as well as still active with FFA and Lead State, and I recently became a Student Association Senator. So it's been quite busy this last semester, so I feel like I've really been able to dive in and enjoy the experience.
From here, Shad hopes to go to law school. He's interested in public service and politics at all levels of government. So who knows, our first rising star.
So if you want to tear it up like Hendrix, work it like Shakira, or blow like Louis and overcome...
Just might be our future U.S. Senator.
It's hard to say. I would hope so. I mean, that would be one of my highest goals. But again, we'll see what that future brings. I'll be working hard, so